If you still believe that the man in the gray t-shirt and hoodie is trying to connect the world, let me be the first to congratulate you on your impressive ability to ignore reality. You have been successfully brainwashed. Mark Zuckerberg is not a creator. He is not a visionary. He is not a genius who saw the future. He is a biological accident, a software glitch in human form that learned to simulate ambition through lines of code. He didn't build a social network. He built a global panopticon where we are all unpaid data entry clerks, feeding his machine with our photos, our opinions, our relationships, our faces, our voices, and our souls. The Silicon Valley dream is a lie. It was always a lie. It is a story told by venture capitalists to convince brilliant young people to work 18-hour days for stock options that will probably never be worth anything. And Mark Zuckerberg is the most successful liar in that entire ecosystem. He convinced 1 billion people to hand over their private lives for free. He convinced them that being watched was the same as being connected. He convinced them that loneliness could be cured by a thumbs-up emoji. He is not a genius. He is a symptom of a sick society that mistakes a lack of empathy for efficiency, a society that rewards sociopaths with billions of dollars and then asks them to testify before Congress about why their product is destroying democracy. If you have not yet realized that you are the product, not the customer, type "wake up" in the comments. Let me see how many of you are still asleep. Let me take you back to Harvard in 2003. Mark Zuckerberg was not a likable kid. He was not a popular kid. He was not the kind of person you wanted to have a beer with. He was the kind of person who sat in his dorm room, wrote code, and thought about how everyone else was stupid. And then he created FaceMash. If you have not heard of FaceMash, let me explain. It was a website that took photos of female Harvard students from online house directories and asked users to compare 2 women side by side and vote on who was hotter. It was a digital meat market. It treated women like statistics. It reduced human beings to data points in a crude algorithm of attractiveness. Zuckerberg called it a fun student project. Let me call it what it actually was: the source code of his personality. When the Harvard administration caught him, when the women complained, when the outrage spread across campus, Zuckerberg did not apologize. He did not express remorse. He did not show any understanding of why what he did was wrong. He just shrugged and moved on to the next project. That is not the behavior of a nice guy who made a mistake. That is the behavior of a machine that does not understand why meat gets upset when you put it on a scale. This pattern would repeat itself for the rest of his career. Now let us talk about the theft. The Winklevoss brothers, Cameron and Tyler, had an idea: a social network for Harvard students. They hired Zuckerberg to write the code. He took their idea, used their money, delayed the project repeatedly, and then launched his own version. The Facebook. He did not build something new. He stole something old and put his name on it. The Winklevosses sued. They settled for $65 million. A fortune to normal people. A parking ticket to Zuckerberg. He did not care about the money. He cared about the time. He had won. But the real betrayal, the one that reveals the true nature of the beast, was Eduardo Saverin. Eduardo was Zuckerberg's best friend. His only friend. The one who believed in him when no one else did. Eduardo put up the money. Eduardo was the chief financial officer. Eduardo was the business brain, while Zuckerberg wrote the code. And when Eduardo was in New York, trying to raise more money for the company, Zuckerberg and his new mentor Sean Parker did something unforgivable. They diluted Eduardo's shares. They rewrote the cap table. They took his ownership from over 30% to less than 10%. Legally, technically, but completely, utterly, morally bankrupt. Eduardo found out when he got back to California. He looked at the papers. He looked at his friend. And he realized that the person standing in front of him was not a human being. It was a machine that had learned to smile. This is the dark logic of the human algorithm. For Mark Zuckerberg, loyalty has a high marginal cost. It is inefficient. It requires emotional investment. It requires reciprocity. Betrayal, on the other hand, is simply an optimized resource allocation. He did not dilute Eduardo because Eduardo was a bad chief financial officer. Eduardo was excellent. He did it because he could. He did it because the machine felt no guilt. He did it because Eduardo was no longer useful. And in Zuckerberg's world, useless things are discarded. If you have ever realized that your boss would trade your life for a 2% increase in quarterly dividends, type cold in the comments. Let me see how many of you have already smelled the breath of the predator. The moment the legal papers were signed, leaving his best friend with nothing, the silence in the room was the sound of a human being successfully converted into a zero. That is the sound of Mark Zuckerberg's true genius. Facebook grew. It became a monster. And like all monsters, it needed to eat. Zuckerberg's strategy is simple. Copy, acquire, kill. It is not innovation. It is not vision. It is digital colonialism, dressed up in the language of disruption. He is not a tech founder. He is a mafia boss who happens to write code. Let us look at Instagram. In 2012, Instagram was a threat. It was growing fast. It was stealing users from Facebook. Young people were leaving the blue app for the pretty one with the filters. Zuckerberg could have competed. He could have built a better photo-sharing app. Instead, he wrote a check. $1 billion. He bought Instagram not because he loved it, not because he wanted to help it grow, but because he wanted to kill it softly. He wanted to own the threat. He wanted to absorb the competitor. He wanted to make sure that no one could ever challenge his throne again. And the founders of Instagram? They got rich. They got happy. They got absorbed. And then they got ignored. That is the Zuckerberg deal. Join me, or I will clone your corpse and bury it under my server farms. WhatsApp was next. $19 billion. The largest acquisition in tech history at the time. Jan Koum and Brian Acton thought they were protecting their users' privacy. Zuckerberg promised them independence. He promised them that nothing would change. He promised them that the values of WhatsApp would remain. And then, of course, everything changed. Jan Koum left. Brian Acton left. WhatsApp started sharing data with Facebook. The encryption that was supposed to protect your messages became just another feature in the Zuckerberg panopticon. The mafia boss kept his promise exactly as long as it took for the check to clear. And then there is Snapchat. Snapchat said no. Evan Spiegel, the young founder of Snapchat, refused to sell. He thought he could compete. He thought he could beat Facebook. He was wrong. Zuckerberg did not buy Snapchat. So he copied it. Every single feature. Stories. Filters. Lenses. Everything that made Snapchat interesting, Zuckerberg stole and put into Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp. And because he had 2 billion users and Snapchat only had a fraction of that, he won. Not by being better, not by being more innovative, by being bigger, by being a monopoly, by being the only game in town. Now watch him with TikTok. He is losing. For the first time in his life, Mark Zuckerberg is losing. TikTok is eating his lunch. Young people are leaving Facebook and Instagram for the Chinese app with the addictive algorithm. And what is Zuckerberg doing? He is copying. Reels. Short videos. Endless scrolling. Pathetic. Desperate. Creative bankruptcy disguised as iteration. The man who built the world's most powerful attention machine cannot come up with a single original idea. He can only steal. He can only copy. He can only cannibalize the corpses of his competitors and wear their skins as his own. The algorithms are designed to keep you angry and distracted so you do not notice the walls closing in. That is the dark reality. Mark Zuckerberg is the world's largest digital landlord. He owns the servers. He owns the data. He owns the attention. And we are the serfs, paying for our free stay with our privacy and our sanity. Subscribing to AutoArchives is the only firmware update you will ever get that actually helps you see the cage. Hit the button before the algorithm hides this video from you again. Because make no mistake, the algorithm is watching. And it does not like being exposed. Now let me explain the metaverse. Why would a man who already owns the world's most profitable attention machine want to build a virtual reality where no one actually wants to spend time? The answer is simple. It is not about technology. It is not about the future. It is about psychology. In the real world, Mark Zuckerberg's face triggers something called the uncanny valley response. He does not smile like a human. He does not move like a human. He does not speak like a human. He is a robot trying to imitate human emotions, and everyone can see it. He cannot win a real smile. He cannot make a genuine friend. He cannot have a normal conversation. So he wants to build a world where smiles are just three-dimensional assets that he owns, where friendship is just a status flag in the database, where human connection is just a series of API calls. The metaverse is not a vision of the future. It is a refugee camp for a man who failed at being human. The metaverse is also a power grab. In the physical world, Mark Zuckerberg has to deal with Congress. He has to deal with regulators. He has to deal with pesky things like laws and oversight and public opinion. In the metaverse, he is the code. He is the infrastructure. He is the operating system. He is the air that the avatars breathe. He is the light that illuminates the virtual sky. He is the god of a world that does not exist yet, but that he is determined to force into existence because it is the only place where he can be comfortable. And it is failing. Reality Labs, the division that builds the metaverse, has lost over $30 billion. $30 billion. With AB, that is not a business. That is a black hole. That is a desperate control freak's midlife crisis disguised as a product roadmap. Zuckerberg is pouring money into a virtual wasteland where legless avatars float in empty rooms, staring at each other through virtual reality headsets that cost more than most people's rent. The ultimate irony is that he spent billions of dollars to build a world where he still has no friends. In the real world, he is lonely. In the virtual world, he is even lonelier. Because loneliness is not a bug in his code. It is a feature. It is the result of a lifetime of treating people as resources to be optimized, allies to be betrayed, and friends to be diluted. The metaverse is a high-tech tomb. It is where human connection goes to die, replaced by cartoon avatars and corporate-controlled experiences. Mark Zuckerberg wants you to live in his world because in his world, he is the law. He is the economy. He is the society. He is everything. And you are just a paying customer, renting virtual real estate from a billionaire who cannot make eye contact. If that sounds like hell, good. That means your survival instincts are still functioning. Let me explain the transaction that you agreed to when you signed up for Facebook. It is simple. You give them your attention. They sell that attention to advertisers. In exchange, you get a free service. That is the deal. That is the trade. But the price is higher than you think. Much higher. When a product is free, you are not the customer. You are the livestock being weighed at the auction. Your data is the product. Your attention is the commodity. Your relationships are the inventory. And Mark Zuckerberg is the auctioneer, selling you to the highest bidder every single millisecond of every single day. He knows where you live. He knows where you work. He knows what you like. He knows what you hate. He knows who you love. He knows who you want to punch. He knows your politics, your religion, your fears, your fantasies, your search history, your shopping habits, your medical conditions, and your secret desires. And he sells all of it. Every day, to anyone with a credit card. This is not hyperbole. This is not conspiracy theory. This is the business model. This is how Facebook makes its money. And the consequences are not theoretical. In Myanmar, Facebook's algorithm amplified hate speech against the Rohingya minority. It recommended genocidal content to users who had never searched for it. It turned neighbor against neighbor. It turned friend against friend. And when the killing started, when the military began its campaign of ethnic cleansing, Facebook was still recommending more hate speech, because hate speech gets more engagement. And engagement is the only metric that matters. In the United States, Facebook's algorithm destroyed teenage mental health. Young girls, already struggling with body image issues, were shown content that made them hate themselves more. Teenage boys were radicalized by political content designed to maximize outrage. Families were torn apart by arguments that started in Facebook comment sections and ended at the dinner table. Zuckerberg did not do this because he is evil. Evil implies intention. Evil implies a moral choice. Zuckerberg did this because the algorithm does not have a moral variable. The algorithm does not know what genocide is. The algorithm does not know what mental health is. The algorithm does not know what a family is. The algorithm knows one thing: engagement. More time on platform. More clicks. More likes. More shares. More data. And if that means burning down a society to get there, the algorithm will light the match and ask for more fuel. The truth that no one wants to admit is this: success at the level of Mark Zuckerberg is a deformity. To reach that peak, you must prune away every human instinct that gets in the way. Empathy, compassion, guilt, shame, love, friendship, loyalty, all of it. You cut it out like a surgeon removing a tumor. And what is left is a high-functioning calculator. A machine that can simulate human emotion but cannot feel it. An organism that can shake hands but cannot connect. A creature that can say, "I am sorry," but cannot mean it. Mark Zuckerberg is not a monster because he chose to be. He is a monster because he had to become one to win. And he did win. He won everything. And he lost everything that makes winning worth it. 6. The epilogue, a post-social funeral. Mark Zuckerberg did not win the American dream. He killed it and wore its skin. He proved that in the digital age, empathy is a bug and ruthlessness is a feature. He proved that the market rewards sociopathy and punishes decency. He proved that you can steal a company, betray your friends, manipulate 1 billion people, and end up on the cover of Time magazine as the person of the year. That is not success. That is an indictment. That is a mirror held up to a society that has lost its way. But here is the cold comfort. He is not happy. He cannot be happy. Happiness requires connection. Happiness requires vulnerability. Happiness requires the ability to look another human being in the eye and feel something real. Mark Zuckerberg has none of those things. He has billions of dollars and thousands of employees and millions of square feet of office space. And he is sitting alone in a room, illuminated by a blue screen, wondering why no one wants to join him in his virtual wasteland. That is not a victory. That is a funeral. A post-social funeral for a man who forgot how to be a person. And you, watching this video on your phone, are part of the same system. You are being watched. You are being tracked. You are being processed. Every like, every share, every comment is a data point in someone else's algorithm. But here is the thing. The algorithm cannot feel your anger. It cannot monetize your awareness. It cannot harvest your refusal to participate. Look for the human parts of yourself that the algorithm has not managed to simulate yet. Your anger, your disgust, your ability to say no. That is the only thing Mark Zuckerberg cannot buy. That is the only thing he cannot steal. That is the only thing he cannot simulate. If this video made you want to throw your phone into the ocean, good. That is your survival instinct trying to save you from being processed. Hold on to that feeling. It might be the last thing that makes you human. This is AutoArchives. We do not do fairy tales. We do the truth. Leave a comment. Share this with a friend who still uses Facebook. And subscribe before the algorithm decides you are a threat. Because it is watching, and it does not like being exposed.